Good morning. Good morning, good morning. How is everybody? We're day 2. Hi, George, Hannah, Kate, Mel, Robin, Veronica, Shelly. Oh my gosh. Good morning. All right. Today we're going to do the middle part here. Okay, just a little bit. Some little kind of like satin stitches, but they're going to have a bit of an angle, and you're going to have to do some of them all the way and some of them only a little bit. So I'll explain that in a minute. And we're also going to do just the stems of these guys here because I want to spend a bit more time on the gloves and the blankets. So we kind of are like combining two things today. But because they're two small things, I think it'll be okay. So don't feel overwhelmed. So what you need today is you need a color for the inside. So I'm not talking about the circle. I'm talking about this outside bit right here. Okay? And then you also need a color for the stem, not the leaves. You can make the leaves a different color if you want to, but the stem of your flowers. So let's get started. Okay, so I picked this color. It's like it's like this color almost, but darker and a bit more reddish purple instead of orange. So I think that will be really nice. The only thing that you need to look out for when you're picking colors is don't pick one that's the exact same tone. So like this is an orange and it's very similar in, like lightness and darkness as this color. So although to my eyes it would look nice, you won't see it very much. So you're going to do a lot of work for no reason. So either pick something that's a lot lighter so that you can actually see it, okay? Or something that's a lot darker so you can actually see it. So there's my little tip for picking colors. And we're going to use 3 strands of this. And like I said, it's going to be just like a satin stitch like we did here, but instead of having parallel lines, we're going to have some that go all the way down and some that only go kind of 3/4 of the way down. So some people call it the 3/4 satin stitch. That's what I call it. Or the angled satin stitch. And someone called it something else. I can't remember. So let's do our needle real quick. I didn't do my nails yesterday. I ended up painting the staircase instead. Not the whole stairs, just the sides, because we're going to get carpet down the middle. But like those sides? I don't know what they're called. Not baseboards, skirting boards, or no? I don't know, but I painted those. They needed to be painted. I don't know when he's coming to do it, so I thought no time like the present. All right, let's get started here and tighten this up. So I didn't actually do my nails last night. Whoops. It'll be on the list for today. So what we're going to do is, because there's a lot more space here on the outside than there is here on the inside, we're still going to use the same nice smooth satin stitch kind of technique that we used before. But instead of having them all be parallel, they're kind of be a little bit angled in. So you're going to go up through these stitches. And however far you go up, that's totally up to you. You can do just the edge if you want, if you made a really nice edge around here, or you can kind of blend them together like this. It's okay. And there's a couple different ways you can do this too. So I'll show you kind of like the easy cheat way. So you come up, and again, this circle here can be as big or as small as you want. So if you want it to be a really small circle, you're going to have to tuck more stitches. If you want the circle to be quite big like this, then you might not have to tuck so many stitches. We'll go straight down. Now, a super easy way is to go to the next petal and do the same thing. Okay? Again, it's almost like pretend that there's like a dot in the middle And all of your stitches are going to be angled into that dot. Okay. And then the ones between here, some of them can go all the way down and some of them won't. Some of them maybe will go right next to it or down in the same hole, depending on how wide you want this to be, meaning how much color you want here. Actually, mine didn't turn out too bad. So I did one in the same hole and then one right next to it, and it was okay. Okay, so if you want this hole to be smaller, this, I keep saying hole, but circle, to be smaller, you're gonna have to tuck more stitches. Let's go to the next one. We don't mean tuck, I mean go 3/4 of the way or go down in the same hole even. Let's do this one 3/4 so it doesn't go all the way down. And we'll do this one up here, right next to the first one. I bet we can fit one more in there. And the neatness of this circle here, it doesn't matter because we're actually going to cover that up a little bit. So if you feel like, oh, this is not doing so well, or oh, I'm not making it straight on the line, to have like a really nice straight, you know, circle there. Don't worry about that. And it all depends on how you drew it as well. So again, if you drew it a little bit smaller in the middle, then you might have to do more like down through the same hole. You might not have to do it at all. Maybe you're thinking, what are you talking about, Tori? Because actually all of mine are laying right next to each other. That's fine. We'll actually work more on the angled satin stitch and this flower up here. This is kind of like an easy peasy introductory. You always know that you'll have to do some angled stitches when you have the area at the top is bigger than the area at the bottom. So if you see here, I have to fill in this space. But down here, there's like no space to put your stitches. So if you don't mind the stitches kind of overlapping a little bit, then you can just go ahead and put them all down at the bottom. But if you want them to kind of lay next to each other and kind of go out like a fan, then you're going to want to kind of do the 3/4 way. I always hope it's making sense, you know? And a big reason that I like to do this is because if you keep putting all of your stitches down through the same hole down here, then it's going to get really, really tight, because what you're doing by putting the threads down through the same hole is you're making this hole bigger. So you're squishing all of the other fibers of the fabric out and around, out and out and out and out. And you're making that big, big hole there. So sometimes, it looks like I need another one right here actually. So sometimes you can get away with doing maybe 2 or 3 or 4 stitches down the same hole, but after that, it gets really, really kind of congested in there and it makes it not so nice to stitch in. And then you start thinking, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You just could have done things a little bit differently, you know? This also depends on how thick you want this here to be. So you might kind of want to do one long one in each, and then go back and add one in the middle of all of those and see if that's okay for you. Like this. And maybe if you like the look of just that, that's okay. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it. I like to add the little 3/4 stitches in though, because it makes it look more full. Whoops, pulled it right out of there. Yeah, it makes it look more full. And it gives me a little bit of practice, you know? So I hope we're all doing well today. It's Tuesday. It's really gray and rainy here today. Jesse's still sleeping. I just went up to be like, hey, do you want to go outside? Should we go get a treat? And she was like, no, I'm not interested in that. So I left her up there. Yeah, it's not very nice. Not very nice today. I'm not gonna lie though, I'm ready for the autumn weather. Honestly, once summer's over, I'm just like, the next summer can come anytime. Like spring, I'm here for it. I like it when the days start getting longer and it starts warming up. That's like my favorite time. I do like fall, don't get me wrong. But we didn't really get a good summer this year here, so I'm really looking forward to next spring. And I'm not gonna lie, the cooler weather is really nice right now. I feel like I'm always warm. I just hate how dark it gets so quickly, Jamie T said. Yes. I really struggle in the winter with the daylight and then there not being any. Like last year, I actually bought one of those lights that you sit in front of, you know? And took extra vitamin D. Because I don't like throwing around the word, but it's just depressing. You know? It just makes me feel like, ugh. And in December, like the shortest day of the year, I think the sun sets at 3:50. 3:50. That's too early. Like the sun sets at 3:50. How? And like David doesn't normally come home till like 5 or 5:30. And now they have to do like certain clubs after school and stuff like that. So it's like he would leave at, he leaves like a little bit before 7 and it's dark. And then he comes home and it's nearly 6 and it's dark. And it's like, oh, poor guy. Jamie says, I think I'm going to get one of those. I think the ones that like light up gradually in the morning. Yes. And Kate says I have one and it's so nice to wake up to. Is it? I don't have the light up gradually one. I just have the one that you just like sit in front of. It's just like there. We made it all the way around. Okay, so obviously this is not a perfect circle in the middle, okay? It doesn't have to be because what we're going to do in the middle is do French knots and it's going to cover up all of these edges that maybe you didn't do perfectly. So it's like the perfect little stitch to like fill in. So we'll do that on a different French knot day. And then, yeah, like I said yesterday, if you want to make any of these little lines more, you know, like more ray-like, then you can go ahead and do that whilst you still have the color. So I'm going to do a knot on the back of this, and then I'm going to get the green, and we're going to do a stem stitch for the stem. So it's like the perfect stitch for a stem. Miriam says, I got myself a sad lamp and also a red light to simulate sunrise. I do look insane, and my neighbors must question me. Do you know what? My neighbor, over the past like 2 years, we've become really good friends. Me and her whole family, basically. And for the first like 2 years that I lived here, she was like, I genuinely thought you were like a recluse. Like you never left the house. Like you never like went, like I never went anywhere. I never at all. If I did, I would like wait for David and we'd go together like in the car. So like I didn't really walk anywhere, didn't really do anything. And she was like, I swear I thought you were like a hermit or something. Like you stayed in the house all the time. I'm sure that all the other neighbors think that as well. So we're going to do just the stems here, not the leaves, just the stems, and we're going to do the stem stitch. So we're going to use 4 strands for this because I want to have the stems be a little bit bolder and thicker of a line. If you want to have a nice, delicate, like small, slim stem, then use 3 or even 2. But again, it's up to you how you want it to look. But I like quite thicker stems, okay, for these. So I'm going to use 4 strands. 4 strands. And again, just separating it. I don't have the color number for this green, but it's just not like a bam, it's green. A little bit more muted. So this is the one I'm going to use up here. Do you know what? If it works, Miriam, then just don't care what people say, you know? Who cares? Let's do a little knot on the end. Do, 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 do. This is the only light above us that I have on in the house at the minute, and the rest of the house looks like so gloomy. I find it really hard to like get up and do stuff when it's like this outside. Like it just makes me want to curl up with a blanket, put some candles on, you know, and like chill. All right, I'm going to turn it this way because this is my favorite way to do stem stitch. And I always put the loop on the hump, and it's going to make sense in just a minute. So here we go. I'm going to just zoom out a little bit so that you can see the whole stem because we're going to do this one first. So here we go. So if you see, we're going to do all 3 of these, and these 2 here are connected. So it goes all the way down to the tip, and then we'll go up to here, and then I'll probably jump over here like this and then go down towards the tip of this one. But you can go like left to right or right to left. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so for the stem stitch, let me just put this in a better area here. Okay, so we're going to make 1 stitch length, okay? Now your stitch length that you use, it can be as long or as short as you want it to be, all right? So if you make it all the way down here, you're not going to have very many stitches and it's not going to be very twisty. If you make it really, really short, it's going to be very, very twisty. And you'll see exactly what I mean in just a minute. So I'm going to go for like this length because it's a gradual curve or hump, as I like to say. Okay, it's like almost straight here, and then it kind of just does a little bit of a wart at the very end. If you have a really tight curve, like for this one, there's going to be an option if you would like to stem stitch the outline, then you're going to have to use even smaller stitches, like small, like that big. Okay, is it tedious? A little bit. Does it look amazing? Yes. So there's like pros and cons to both. So let's just start with this one. And for the first stitch, okay, you're going to leave your hump like this. For the first stitch, I like to go all the way to the end again. And then after that, we'll do half and half and half. And it will make sense. And I'll tell you why I do that in just a minute. So we're going to go right next to here. Okay. And I always put the loop on the hump. So if your curve is like this, your loop is up here. If your curve is like this, your loop is down here. This is very similar to outline stitch. It's just that you put the loop on the other side. Okay, so from here, we're going to go half a stitch length of this. So half is about this from here to here. So we're going to go just a little half, just a little guy. All right, leave your loop. And you're going to come up right where you went down and pull that. Okay, now the reason I've kind of started doing this is because I've noticed if I do it the regular way, the end looks very thin and empty because you only get a half stitch there. So from here on, we're just going to go up your half stitch. So really, the length of all your stitches will be the same. They'll just be half, a little bit overlapping, like a brick stitch, but on one line. Okay, so you're just going to go up a little half again. Leave your loop. A little half again. So really, the length of this stitch here, here to here, and the length of this stitch here to here should be the same. I hope I'm making sense. Because I've always done the little half stitch at the end to make it more full. But I've realized actually the way that we start it, I should do a full stitch there too, because otherwise you only get half. And this is what I mean by half. So if I would stop it here, you get this one little piece, that's just one. Whereas these ones are two. Can you see that? And there's two there. There's like 2 layers there, 2 layers there, because they're like this, a little bit overlapping. So this is very similar to a whipped back stitch as well. And the whipped back stitch, you kind of have to stitch it twice because you do a regular back stitch. So if you've never stitched before, just ignore me, we'll do that later. But you go back and slide your needle underneath each stitch and go back the way you came. So you kind of have to stitch it twice. So we'd go all the way down once and we'd go all the way back to cover up those back stitches. But with the stem stitch, you're kind of doing it at the same time. So you actually don't see any individual stitches. You see more like a rope effect. I also love the look of the stem stitch, Hannah. I love it so much. And you can make these, like I said previously, if you make them very big or longer stitches, it's going to be less ropey, less twisty looking. And if you make them smaller, it's going to be more twisty looking. So sometimes people think, well, I don't really want it to look twisty, so I'm going to choose a different stitch. And then they end up going, I don't know what stitch to choose because actually the stem stitch would be perfect. I just don't want this really tight rope. So if you're just looking to like outline something, you can make bigger stitches, longer stitches, and not make it look ropey. So look, we're at the very end here. And this is what I mean by having just that one stitch at the end. So do you see how it looks like that? It's not twisty at the end like that. So what we want to do is go back up here and do that one little like half stitch is what I call it, to just make it a little bit more full, and it goes right back down at the end like that. So what you get is a full, there we go. So what you get is a full thickness all the way from the tip to the tip, instead of having a little bit, like one little extra stitch there that's just one stitch and one little extra stitch at the top. So it starts off a little bit confusing, but hopefully I've explained it properly. And you're not like, Tori, what the hell are you talking about? It is one of my favorite stitches as well because it's so versatile. You can use it for like so many things. You could do a fill with it. You could do outline with it. Like there's so many things that you could do. And it does have that slight twist to it. So I really like that. Okay, so now we need to do this little guy here. and it kind of goes into this one. So what I like to do is push this over a little bit and find the stitch where I can make, I can go up right here and make it look like this is branched off. So I don't want to go like next to it because then it's going to look like a whole separate thing. You know what I mean? It'll look like this. You want it to go like into it. So this right here is a good point. You could also go a little bit lower if you wanted this to be a little bit thicker, but I quite like right here. Yours might be a different point. Okay, so have a look at like where your stitches are and see if you can find a stitch that you can kind of slide it in. If not, you can come up right through the stem stitch. And now we're going right to left. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to do it the other way. Okay, so the hump is still going up like this. So our loop is still going to be on the top. And again, I like to put the first one quite close together. So you get that nice like thick stem there. And it looks like they just kind of branched off from each other. We're going to end just going kind of right behind that little flower there. And this is what that looks like. Okay. And I'm just going to jump straight over here and do the bottom of this one. And then we'll be done for the day. So exactly the same as we did before. I will say that usually I don't like jumping around on light colored fabric because you can almost see, let's see if you can see it. You can almost see this green line that goes straight across there. You probably wouldn't have if I didn't point it out. But normally I would do a knot and start again so that there isn't that line there. But I know I'm going to cover it up with other leaves and stuff. So it's not that big of a concern. But if you're using a really, really, really dark green, and you've got a lighter color fabric, then you might want to consider doing that. So stopping there, making a knot, making another knot on a new piece of thread, and starting again. Okay? I always like semi-love it when I get a really dark fabric because I'm like, yes, I can just jump around willy-nilly any way I want to. It doesn't even matter because you can't even see it. Not me laughing at my own jokes. Nope. Not at all. So yeah, you can totally experiment with doing the loop on the top of the hump or the bottom of the hump, so above or below. It does give a different look, whereas this one twists kind of onto each other. If you do it the other way, you can see every single stitch a little bit more. There's like a big thing about outline stitch and stem stitch, and some people swear it's the same thing, and some people swear it's different. And some people say that stem stitch is outline stitch, but it's just like worked in a different way. I think that the process is exactly the same. You just do it on the other side. So if you've got a straight line, I believe that stem stitch is on the top and outline is on the bottom. To me, it depends on what you have next to it and how you want it to look. So if you want to see all those stitches a little bit more clearly, then put it on the bottom. I like mine on the top because I like to see the twisty look. And you can almost tell if you push your stitches the other way. You can kind of see what it would look like if you did it the other way. Whoops. Easy peasy day today, eh? And then right back down. And we've got our two wee stems there. So let's flip it over, do some knots. And actually from the back, it looks just like a back stitch. So you can see every single stitch like this. Yeah. And big surprise, but if you do a back stitch on the front of your fabric, the back will look like a stem stitch. So they're kind of like forwards and reverse of each other a little bit. Let's zoom out and see what we've done today. It looks like a flower now, like a real life flower. There we go. So that's it for me today. We just used the two colors, stem stitch, and we did, I suppose you could call it a straight stitch if you didn't do so many angles or if you didn't do any 3/4 stitches. But the 3/4 satin stitch is technically what it is. So it all depends on how yours looks and what you did. Okay. So that's it. A very easy one for today. We did two little things. Make sure that you tag me at the Barbie Fox when you post. I'm not gonna lie, whenever I do stitch-alongs, my stories, like I don't know what it is, but Instagram's like, nope, I'm not gonna show your stories to anybody. But I don't even care. I share every single one because I'm like, yes, look at how good they did. So I'm not gonna stop sharing, sorry. And make sure you're using the hashtag the Barmy Fox SAL, and then you can see all of them. If you go to the hashtag right now, there's loads. Like, I was beaming last night. I was like, look how good everyone's done, David. And he was like, yeah, they all did a flower. I was like, yeah, because that was the job. That's what we had to do, a flower. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you tomorrow. Okay? Bye.